Welcome to Color Me Happy. My name is Brandy Hofer. I'm your host. Thank you so much for being here. If you're just tuning in for the very first time, I am a Canadian artist, mother to three, educator, author, muralist, and just a multifaceted creative all around. And I'm so excited about our guest today because I'm a long time fan of his. It's wonderful to see another Canadian thrive in the art world, and it doesn't come easy, and we talk about that candidly in this episode of what it looks like from each person's personal perspective. And I remember admiring how successful Andrew was way back when I was an emerging artist, and it's not easy for anyone, and it takes time and effort and working together collaboratively as a team. And he's got such a beautiful, great team, and so his work obviously was the first thing I was drawn to. And it's neat studying his career and living mine at the same time, because I get to be proud of what he's accomplished. He's from Regina, so he's another Saskatchewan-born artist, and it's so wonderful to see what he's done. So he talks about his education and living in the UK and coming back to Canada, and he's in the UK right now. But yeah, it's a really cool story, and it's very unfiltered. No doubt, right? And he's making a painting while we're talking. So that was really cool too, because I can see the day he posted and the day we had a podcast, and it was such a great memory. And I'm really grateful that he came on. He's just such a cool, down-to-earth person. And we do talk about this in this episode, is that there are individuals out there, if you just ask them for advice or for their help, a lot of people are willing when you reach out. Andrew's so great. He's been so kind for the decade or more that I have admired his work. He's been a wonderful friend and always answered my questions and shown me support now I'm going to start crying, as an emerging artist. And for a long time, and I actually want to write a lot. I have friends at Create Magazine, and I want to write an article about this, of what it felt like a decade ago to be a female artist. And Andrew was one of the only people who ever answered me back. I didn't tell him that. It was lonely, and it felt like a club that I wasn't allowed to be a part of. And there was some awful things that people said to me. And I just couldn't find where I fit. And Andrew just told me one day, he's like, fuck them. Do not listen to anything they say. And of course, if any of you have followed my journey, I have found many groups of where I do fit and where we lift each other up and thrive. And our Color Me Happy community is one of them. We share in wins. It's a beautiful place. And the Art Queens, I'm a part of the Art Queens. And that is where I really found a special group of people. So there's a lid, and this is a chapter in my book. There is a lid for every pot. And you will find your stove where your pot goes. That is the worst thing that's ever come out of my mouth, but kind of the best at the same time. Anyway, Andrew showed me kindness when I didn't have anyone showing me kindness, and I'm so honored that he came on today. I'm grateful that he exists in this world and keeps on shining bright and sharing his creative joy and passion with the whole wide world. So if you don't know him, we probably do, but if you don't, check him out. He has a show in Australia coming up in Piermark Gallery. Yeah, in Sydney, April 21st to May 2023. And his work is absolutely stunning and spectacular, as is he as a person. So enjoy this beautiful episode, my friend. Look, I don't need to sell you. You're amazing.
Love it. Well, thank you. You're amazing. You're pretty amazing. Dude, I've got your little happy little person over here. She keeps me company, hey? She's been here for
Thank you.
years.
Great.
She's been
I
here for
love that
years and
she
years
came
and
to you
years.
crooked and you left it.
Well, yeah, I thought that was part of it. So I have little bits of other people. Like I've got Ben Murphy here and I've got Clinton Hayden photographs. I've got stuff from my nieces and nephews. Like I've got this here. Look, I've got like this.
Oh, there is
It's
nothing, Andrew, better than kid art. Like I can't, every time they like glue a shoe to the canvas or something weird, I'm just like, oh, that is
Oh, that's my
brilliant.
mom. My mom can't let anything out of her sight that her grandkids do. And so I go home and she's just got like she kept my stuff from high school, but we didn't put everything up everywhere. Well, we probably did actually. That's a lie. Yeah, but you just go in and there's like tie-dye plates all over. There's just everything everywhere. It's quite cute.
I love it. It's
Yeah, so
great.
I'm gonna
I
like
think
I'm just gonna like putz about while we chat. If that's okay.
that's
Like I'm just
okay.
gonna like
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So
I'm actually putting my nephew. This is actually my nephew. I'm using his face for this
really?
piece. Yeah.
Oh,
So
cool.
I didn't really ask permission because it's not really him. I'm just gonna like using it as like the outline of like a kid face, right?
Oh, he needs to
Yeah.
sign a contract and a photo release
Well,
form.
I was gonna tell my mom, and then I thought she's gonna get weird. She's gonna be like, "Did you ask your brother?" So anyway, I'm just gonna use it, and they won't even know. So
Unless they listen to this podcast, which they probably won't. So safe chance.
Yeah.
Who knows? They'll be like, "Ooh, a Canadian podcaster."
Well, my mom
interviewed
surprised me.
Andrew. We should listen to it.
My dad's like most dads. He's like completely clueless, right? But my mom sometimes surprises me, where she'll pay attention to random things, and I'll be like, "How do you know this?" But moms are like that, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I was
Yeah,
like, I was like in university for like 4 years. My dad's like, "What are you studying?" Right. Anyway.
My grandma, I went to France and did this big project thing, and I had a blog about it. And my grandma, after, she's like, "Oh, Brandy, I've been reading your blob and I love
Your
it so much."
blog.
And I was like, you know what? If my grandma made it to my blog, she can call it whatever the fuck she
Yeah,
wants.
no, I was gonna say that. If that's what she thinks it's called, you know what, Grandma? Like, power to you. That's so cute. I love that. I'm gonna grab one thing. So, okay, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so I want to talk about which you don't know is the beginning of when I discovered your artwork.
Well, I've known you forever. Like I've known you for
it's been we're getting
like
old.
a decade.
We're getting
Although when
older.
you came to my show in Toronto or New York, I was like, "Oh, you're a brand?" Yeah, you I didn't know what you looked like. So
that's what happens.
I remember being like, "You're so pretty. Yeah. Oh my god."
Yeah, you have a good memory.
Yeah.
I do remember that conversation. You thought I would be tiny and I was not, which also in France, they kept calling me big German girl. And I was like, I'm only 5'8". So, but to the small old French people, I was a giant, apparently.
Where did you go in France and when?
I went to the 2011. I did this like spree of residencies and projects in like Montreal and France, and it was really good, and I'm glad I did it because of course I had children like 5 years after, and I think everyone should explore and discover themselves. And I don't think traveling independently is an important part of that.
I don't think I could. There's a lot of things I did like 15, 20 years ago that I don't think I would have the nerve to do now. Like I think we have that energy when we were younger to throw ourselves in like really scary situations. I know I did. And I was talking to my partner, like, I would like, how did I even move to the UK? Like, how did I do that?
That's one of my questions for you guys.
Like, how did that even happen?
And how?
I was living in Vancouver, and I had just finished my undergrad, and I was feeling like a little bit stifled creatively. I think I've all my entire life felt like, well, I think creative people often feel stifled because you want to do that next thing or reach that next level. and sometimes you're not sure what that is. And yeah, I just applied to Chelsea College of Art because that's where Peter Doig went. And I didn't even know, like in
Without
retrospect, Chelsea,
thinking very hard.
no, like I didn't know London schools. And in retrospect, that was not the best school for me to go to. Um, and I just was like, okay, I'm going to apply because I'm not going to get in. And lo and behold, I got in. And I remember getting the acceptance letter and then kind of freaking out because I wasn't sure if I wanted to defer, but then I also wasn't, I didn't feel like I was in the position to be able to pass up the opportunity. So, right, like I actually wish, because I love Vancouver. I loved living in Vancouver. And I actually wish, you know, I maybe would have spent another year or two. I just don't feel like I was really ready to go. I just was a bit premature, but I don't know, the opportunity came up and I took it. So who knows, you know, it's easy to say shoulda, woulda, coulda, or whatever, but who knows where I'd be without that, or if I would have, or you know, sometimes you put things off and then your nerves freak out, you freak yourself out. So it just came up, and I just went a few months later, and yeah, never looked back.
Mm-hmm. And then you ended up, you guys are citizens. You're
Well, and then I just
official,
stayed. Yeah, we moved to
official.
Berlin. I did a year in Berlin, which was really difficult actually, as a you know, as an outsider, with the language and just it was just we don't need to get into it, but it was a really difficult period for me. And then we
Mm-hmm.
moved back here, and then a lot of time, money, effort, and legal work, and yeah, now we're citizens. So yeah, you know, it's like Jurassic Park. Life will find a way.
The thing is, though, I feel like as much as we look back and we're like, what if we did this? And that's actually the shirt I'm wearing. It's Kindness Wins. It's Pink Shirt Day. We do this big thing in
What's
our
Pink Shirt
community,
Day
and I'm
like?
a
Like
part of it.
bullying?
Pink Shirt Day is anti-bullying,
Yeah. Okay.
so it is today, which is amazing. And so I've been designing these shirts for 3 years, and there's like 7,000 now out in the world in our
Wow.
community, and it's really
That you
cool. And
design?
yeah, so someone approached me
Tell
and
me
they're
one.
like,
I need to buy one.
you're I don't know if you I'll just send you one. It's like it's mostly here in our community. It's turned from anti-bullying because they didn't want to just say anti-bullying because with human nature, so they called it Kindness Wins. So all the proceeds go to anti-bullying and trauma programming in our community.
Okay.
But this year's design was a bunch of blocks, and so when you're talking about the your path and where you spend time, and sometimes we have like these awful periods of our life where like, why did we do that? But I feel like those are a part of you and how you got to where you are and who
Well,
you are. And without those
yeah.
building blocks and that path and that strength that it took and resolve, you wouldn't be who you are.
No, absolutely. You know, like those periods are never fun. And I'm sure you've heard me say before, like the studio is just a metaphor for real life. And that's something I very firmly believe in. And so, um, you know, there's things that happen in the studio that are, you struggle through a period or a phase or a body of work, and it sucks when you're there, but they help you grow. So it's a bit of a cliche to say, but it's also, you know, it's a cliche for a reason because there's a lot of truth to it.
Mm.
So there are some really ugly parts of well, I think everybody has ugly bits. There's some really, really hard bits of my history that I am that I maybe put myself into or that were thrust upon me that I would don't want to go back, but I'm happy with who I am and I've learned from them. I like to think I'm a really resilient person, and I'm also, you know, one thing my partner always says to me is he always says that how he admires my willingness to learn and grow and admit when I'm wrong. And I think that's a personality trait that has just helped me do exactly that, help me grow and help me become better in the studio and a stronger person. I mean, we all think we're open-minded, but you know, so many people can, I think, just be so set in their ways and so unwilling to to consider other perspectives. And I think, I read a lot, and actually that's one of the things that I think reading helps me with is realize that, other people are the main characters of their own stories, so that other people have their own problems and histories, and so it just makes you a bit more empathetic and open-minded, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think actually I had an artist on the other day, and she was talking about, I haven't released it yet. Essie, I think Essie. I'm bad with nouns and names, but Essie, she was amazing.
Esty?
She's a writer. She's doing all these residencies around the world, but she's a freelance writer, and the power of words is such a beautiful thing, and it's a great way to process our lives.
Well, ultimately, I think this is where creative people have the interaction, because ultimately I feel like it's all just different ways of communication. So whether it's literature or music or even fashion or dance, and that's not to say that you have to be, inspired by each one of these arts, but it is to say that that's why I think there's so much interaction between them, because ultimately, really, I think it's just about communication. It's about conveying a message in a non-verbal way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like writing, literature, poetry, that's written text. So I think it's just about finding, words fall so short sometimes. It's like, how else can we figure out a way to convey this message? And that's where I think art comes in.
It is a safe space.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So when I talk about the beginning of my love with figurative art and that pull in that direction, and I was a student at NSCAD University. Speaking of places that I didn't love either, but we were in New York.
NSCAD's Nova Scotia, right? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think that through either. I didn't realize how far it was from the prairies. Super far.
Because you're from where originally? Calgary?
I'm from Lloydminster.
Okay.
So between Saskatoon and Edmonton, and came back somehow. And so we went to New York, and I was like super in love with Jenny Saville, and who wasn't? And
it was like, yeah, that's what we did at that time, right? I mean, she's like a gateway drug, and that's not to knock her work, because she's amazing. But for me, they were like the gateway artists, like Seville, Frida Kahlo, Liechtenstein. These were like my gateway artists that, But she's amazing. Yeah. Okay. So keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, just the rawness and the vulnerability, and then I just admired that so much. And then I fell upon your work, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's another Canadian, and he's around my age, and he's actually doing this. Like he's pursuing art. I don't know anyone else. There was no one else in my life who was like really, because social media wasn't a really big thing yet.
No, it was Facebook.
That's when we were aging. That's when we're aging ourselves. So it's right before Facebook. And so I think I discovered it, your work through like Saatchi. I was on Saatchi
online
too. And
that was just fun.
So
this should be called like Flashback Podcast.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember the title of the Andrew Salgado, the artist to invest in today. Do you remember that? Yeah,
I do.
But the thing
they gave me a big leg up. Like that was Rebecca. Her name was Rebecca Wilson. She's now gone.
Yes,
but
Rebecca Wilson. Yeah.
She gave me like a big leg up, man. She was like, because it's hard. It was hard to get in. I think that the I don't want to steal your like
no, go ahead
here, but like the whole dynamic has changed now with social media. But back then, it's like, how did you get in? So there were still these vetting processes of like being accepted and achieved, and that was when we had all those artx.com, both selling platforms. So that's what you did. You like put yourself on these selling platforms and just hope somebody paid attention to you. But continue. Go ahead.
It's a lot of pressure, and it didn't leave a lot of room for anything different than that like model,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and for me, it was a really, although I was like selling original art, it was like a really big struggle. And then the art world seemed very, I always say the art world's not for sissies because it wasn't very nice. And I remember actually messaging you and I was
I
like, I'm a
hate
part of
it.
these new communities and they are so awful and I don't know what to do. And this body of work was like
I'm so happy
a
that's changed. No,
breakthrough.
it hasn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. You have to have a really thick skin to do this. It's funny because I
Yeah.
remember I went back home like, oh God, like 5 years ago. Like, I mean, I go back once a year, but I was home maybe 6, 7 years ago by now. And I ran into somebody from high school and he's like, oh, why are you here? And I said, oh, I just came home for like a week. I said, I was just kind of burnt out and really stressed out with art. And I just thought, I'm just going to go see mom. And he's like, why would you be stressed out with art? Don't you just like go and play around and paint all day? And I said,
Ugh.
you have no idea what else it entails. Like, I have to be my own one-man enterprise. I have to promote myself. I have to pay my studio rent. I have to pay my bills. I have to pay my taxes. I have to promote myself. I have to manage my studio. I have to figure out if I'm going to be able to sell these paintings and how I'm going to sell these paintings. And if I don't sell these paintings, do I have a career? And if I don't have a career, what the fuck am I going to do with myself? So I was like, you literally just think that you go in and color between these lines and make some money
Boom.
and boom.
Magic.
And it's like, oh my God, it's like, oh, it takes a lot. I was actually speaking to a local or a younger, whatever, just a peer artist recently, like 2 days ago. And he said, I lost 2 days like filing taxes and doing shipping and all this stuff. And I just thought, I'm so lucky because like the gallery does that for me and how much time it used to take me, even answering like all these Facebook messages. And I was lucky that I had them coming in, but I remember I'd go to the studio and it would take like 3 hours for me to answer these messages. And then I just found out the way how to deal with it. And something about Instagram is more immediate, so you just rattle them off throughout the day somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, you are fortunate to have that team, but I mean, you guys have worked hard to have your team and to support everyone. And that's something else too, right? It's like a working thing. Like probably 75% of my time is on a computer, maybe more.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really lucky that way. We figured out a way to sort of just vet everybody, and I answer everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
if I don't, it's just by a kind of freak mistake. But yeah, I just really focus on studio stuff, which is I'm lucky
Mm-hmm.
that way, and I'm aware I'm lucky. And so I'm like I always have time for young artists and stuff when they reach out to me because I don't know. I feel like there's sort of that adage or the axiom that knowledge is not a limited resource, and if you share your knowledge, it doesn't mean you're gonna lose your own, or it's not like there's a limited amount of this to give away. So I always think it's nice to help people who are
That is,
questioning or
you
uncertain.
are you're super kind and there's expansion when you share what you know,
Yeah,
and growth for not just them but you yourself. Like, why are we holding on to these things?
reluctant to share them. Why are like I just don't want to be that asshole artist that is harboring knowledge because I have become knowledgeable. I was saying to somebody, I just figured out that I can wear aprons. And I was saying to the people at the art store today, like it only took me 15 years or more of doing this to figure I could just wear an apron and stay clean. But I have been doing this for 15 years and I
But you're
have
still
learned.
not clean, Andrew. See that
Say
you're
again,
not
I'm
all the way
sorry.
clean. You're
I'm sorry,
still
what?
not
Oh,
clean.
I, the paint giveth and the paint taketh away. So, you know, it happens.
Oh, with my three boys and them like being in here, I can't work in oil right now, which hurts my heart. But anyway, that's another subject for another time. Okay, so I felt like lost, like wandering in a desert at this time in my life. And you were so kind. And I was trying to find community and
Oh, that's
connection.
sweet. Thank you. That's
I joined this one group and I won't say who it was or what it was. And it
okay.
was led by like a male photographer. And he said something really fucking cruel. And I don't know why I was looking for validation from like someone who clearly saw from the male gaze point of view, and my work was like of the divine feminine. Like, I don't know why I was looking for anything from him, and he was
Yeah.
very awful. And you were like, fuck him,
Well,
fuck that guy.
sometimes when we're starting, we think that people know so much that we don't. And that's probably one of the biggest things I've tried to demystify since, figuring out how to do things is like, nobody knows what we're doing. Like everybody who has a way of doing things in the studio, I'm painting a fist, so I keep like going like this. I don't know if you see. But everybody who's in the studio doing stuff is just fucking making it up as they go along. So I just hate that attitude of people who go out of their way to make you feel unknowledgeable or foolish. Because when I was doing my master's, that's how I felt every day, and I nearly quit my master's, and it was such a ugly period for me. And I just remember going to my student housing, and part of it was probably that I was in a new city and all this shit, but I just felt so out of the loop. I felt so stupid all the time, and I hated feeling like that. And I just thought, why? Like, why are they making me feel this way? I don't know. Maybe I was just being a big suck. I have no idea, but I learned a lot from it. I mean,
I think a lot of people
things
come out with that same experience, and why is that why are institutions like that when we know as
can be super
living,
weird
breathing
too.
Artists that when you work together and when you collaborate, there's so much strength and power, and when you share knowledge, there is it's a more fulfilling path, and it's a more beautiful one.
Well,
and why can't more people practice that?
I certainly used to have a us versus them, me versus the world mentality. If my neighbor sold a painting, I'd get all bitter and jealous. And there's certainly an element that there's always going to be professional jealousy, and you're always going to feel like, oh, I wanted that opportunity. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really get you anywhere. So, I mean, Instagram is horrible for that because it has a tendency to highlight everybody else's achievements. Even if they're not really achievements, they are presented to be perceived as achievements. And, just by the nature of how it's done, it's meant to make everybody feel insufficient and inferior. But I think that's one of the reasons I started reading again, and like reading in earnest, is because it just kept me off of Instagram. That's as simple as that. Then I would come home, and instead of watching TV and scrolling through Instagram, I would open a book, and then my mind was engaged and it was focused on that. And I couldn't just be this idle, worrisome person. And it's just how I'm much more open about this now, but even a few years ago, I wasn't so eager to talk mental health because it was still seen as such a scare. Even a few years ago, I remember thinking like, I can't talk about this because it's going to be like the pariah if I talk about mental health. And thank God that that's not the case anymore, that we can talk about these things. But artists, like, we're alone in this little room, and it's our job to tell ourselves that what we're doing isn't good enough. Like, it's our job to look at something and critique it and make it better. And that's a very tricky tightrope to walk on, that you're looking at something thinking, how can I improve this? And we're not supposed to slip into like, oh, I stuck territory, but inevitably that can happen, and that can happen. It's just a sad reality of what we do. So I think we have to do everything in our power to keep our heads above the tide, above the water, so to speak.
And I don't know if this is your experience. I know you don't open up to critique or anything or studio visits a lot, but when I found a sense of community, that's where things became a more empowering and journey creatively for me personally. Actually, in one of my communities, I came across Twyla, who she was in one of my pods for like Thrive Network, like maybe 5 years ago. You used to lifeguard with Twyla at the pool?
Twyla Riffle.
Twyla Zetner? So Twyla. Anyway,
I know
my names. Okay. Yeah, she's like, I don't know how we were talking. Maybe just fellow Canadian artists, and we were talking about it in the pod that day, but it was just so hilarious.
Oh my God, that's Regina kids. We get around, man. We get around. That's where
What?
I'm from. I
How
didn't use
old
a
are
dirty word.
you?
That's where I'm from. I lifeguarded from like 16 to 21 or something. I lifeguarded for years, and then I was a waiter for a bit. But then waiting was the last job I ever had, because I remember talking to my roommate Ashley, and but it was really, that idea was really scary to quit a job, because at the uh, at the restaurant I was working at, I could clear some good money in tips, right? And then suddenly it's thinking, okay, am I going to do this because I don't have enough time? Because if you're a competent server, you could say, okay, I only want to work 20 hours this week, but inevitably you do 30 and then 40, and then before you know it, you have no time for the studio. And I really think the studio deserves time. Like you need time in the studio. You can't just come in and bust things out for 3 hours a day and then go. I mean, maybe some people can. I can't. I need to come in and get stuck in, as the Brits say.
I think when you give things time, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah.
And it's not always painting, it's sometimes just sitting there. And unfortunately, the season I'm in my life with 3 kids, I don't know what I'm doing. Really, actually.
Well, I was talking to my
But
I was talking to my friend Laura, and she's like, "Oh, I can't read as much as you do." I'm like, "Laura, you're doing your master's, you're a teacher, and you've got 3 kids. I'm doing none of that. So, it's relative. It's easy for people who have different situations to say this, that, and the other thing, but everybody has a different situation, and
everyone's path is different.
absolutely, absolutely.
Right? Like,
Yeah,
and that this season of her life is very different from the season of your life, and that is okay, right?
exactly.
Like I'm used to churning out bodies of work like every year, because actually this was like a turning point, and why this podcast began was
Okay,
Penny Lane. She's an art consultant. She works out of BC, and
like the Beatles song,
yes, yes, Penny Lane Chin.
isn't it?
And yes, and she's so great. But things were like turning, like tides were turning in the art world, and she's like, "Let's just try this, Brandy. Let's don't stop applying to galleries. Don't do any of that. Let's just go with your website, do seasonal collections, blah 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 blah, up your commissions, and all this." And she's like, "Let's see what happens." And then, oh, long story short, a year later, I had made 130 originals. Most of them sold. I was totally fucking burnt, like out to the
Well,
core.
that's something we have to watch as well. Okay, keep going.
I was so like, and so I had these kids too. So I'm doing this in the midst of,
These kids, whoever they
these
are.
kids, and in the midst of it, it wasn't fair to me, and it wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't fair to anyone really.
Yeah.
It was great because I grew my collector base and whatever. And you actually showed me the heart, like the consistency of showing up, and we can talk about that in a minute. But the consistency of showing up and growing your skill and getting to be where you want to be.
What, like you mean like showing up at the studio, you mean, or what?
Yeah, that like I was in
Yeah.
that habit and routine, and then you get a little advice, and they're like, try this, and you're like, okay, and then it works way too well, and you're like, and monetarily, like I'm like, I can't just churn out work for me personally. I just can't turn out work and have it like financially come out on top at this point right
Mhm.
now. And that was not worth it at all. And I wasn't in love with portraiture and figurative work anymore. And that's where like I had an obsession in life. And so what do I do? I wasn't honoring the magic. And what do I do now that I can't even stand to paint a face? Like
Yeah.
what? Where have I
No,
gotten myself?
I mean, I went through that. I went through that too. Like, I felt like I'm painting this because buyers want it, or people expect me to paint this, but I don't. I'm feeling really unfulfilled with what I'm doing. So what do you
can
do?
see the shift in your work. You can see that shift, don't you think? If you look back at
Oh
your
yeah,
work
for
over
sure.
time.
I remember knowing, okay, I'm going to finish this show and then I'm going to jump ship. I remember feeling that. That show was The Snake in 2006 with the green walls and everything. And I remember thinking,
Oh
this
yeah.
is I remember thinking, this is it. Like, this is, after this, I'm literally going to close this door and enter a new door. And I think I did. And so I mean, that's not to say I'll never go back and do those, like, what I call the floating heads, but I forget who it was, but some other artist said that ultimately with, and this is not to knock portraiture, this is your thing, but this other artist said it better than I could. She said, he said, I don't remember who it was. He said, ultimately it's two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. And I was like, that's it. I feel like I've got the same format and I'm just throwing bells and whistles on it. And it felt like I'm so bored with this. So now I sort of feel like I've really knocked down the door in the sense that I can paint whatever the fuck I want. And it's so liberating. I have so much fun in here now. I just like, I have a little sign on my wall that says, I'll go get it. I'll show you. And I look at this every day.
It should be. It should be that.
I look at this every day and I think it's so important. Is that backwards for you? It says, you're fortunate to be here today.
Yes.
And because there have been times, I'm going to put it right here, because there have been times where it's been like, I don't want to go to the studio. And then you think, smarten the fuck up. Like, how lucky I am that I come in on the hours I want, when I want. And it's usually, I end up being really consistent, but I play my music. I do what I want. No, I never have meetings. I never have to deal with late people or pissy coworkers, or like, it's a pretty sweet gig if you can make it work. So appreciate what I have. Stop bitching. I don't know. I'm sort of just in this whole like it's like this I don't want to say zen, but I don't know. Trying to getting older and appreciating, and life's short, so enjoy what you have.
Well, you know what you want because you've learned what you don't want.
Yeah. And I don't want to wake up one day, on my deathbed and think I had everything going. Why couldn't I just smile and enjoy it? So I mean, and yes, it's a competitive industry, and yes, we get bummed out sometimes, but yeah, I don't know. I think if you can make a go of it, art is a pretty fabulous career. It's just that we all have, well, like you said, we all have different ways of going about it. So figure out what is going to work for you.
I'm literally talking about that today in my motivational speech that I'm giving following this podcast, which was last minute. So I'm like, how hard am I going to fuck this up? I don't know. Let's just go talk to a bunch of people. So I wrote a book and started a podcast and did all these things because I was completely burnt out.
You wrote a book. Sell it to me. I don't know any of these things. Why are you keeping secrets from me, Brandy?
It's called Color Me Happy, See Your Everyday Ordinary as Extraordinary. So how can we?
I love that.
Yeah, it's through creativity and like honoring obviously your path and but like how do we do that? And it starts with like, anyways, I'm not going to give you my book thing, whatever.
Why not? Give a plug. Give a plug, yeah. Baby.
Oh, they've heard it here many times.
Okay. Buy Brandy's book. I haven't yet, but I will. No, so I actually am. I know. This is top secret, but I'm actually. Well, do you know my first project?
So maybe don't remember, but you sent me pieces of your book, and I read them.
We're not allowed to talk about that yet. That's still top secret.
Oh, okay.
But I'm working with Margaret Atwood's editor. Did I tell you that?
Right. So is that why you have to keep it a secret now? Is because you're working with an editor?
No, I mean, it's up to me, but I just don't feel comfortable talking about it until I have something more, until I basically sign a publishing contract. It's just because, I don't know, people are always like, oh, I'm writing a book. And you're like, yeah, sure you are, Deb. Deb in my head is the person that always says she's going to do stuff and never does it. I don't know. No offense to any Debs out there. But no, I've started another. Once you do one book, it's like it's the hardest fucking thing I've ever done in my life. So you realize, okay, but
it's so hard. It's so
Kurt Vonnegut.
hard.
Kurt Vonnegut has this quote in the novel Bluebeard where he says something along the lines of, "Everybody thinks they can write a book until they try and realize it's the hardest fucking thing they've ever done." And I think it's been far more rewarding than any painting or body of paintings I've ever done. Um, it's just a completely different beast. But I also am starting to collate stuff to do a book on the art industry, and basically just sharing like some of the stuff we're talking about here. And I love this idea of, the word I always go to is just demystifying the art world, because it's like it's so scary and big, but then it's like it's not really scary and big. People are just assholes in it, and just
Yeah.
gotta figure out how to keep your wits about you.
Thank you for saying that, Andrew, because I didn't really want to say it, but this is kind of what the podcast is about, because the Color Me Happy podcast and the Color Me Happy book and the Color Me Happy community is demystifying the art world, like making it like you feel welcome. Because
And
I remember
I
the experience of not being welcome somewhere, and I think it's fucking bullshit.
Because there's a few players at the top who want to keep the illusion of this hierarchy or whatever it is, because that's how this world operates. And for whatever reason, it's become, I think, Kevin, like my friend Kevin, who works with the gallery, who's the much older gentleman. I shouldn't say much older, who's the very fashion forward, handsome gentleman. But he has like a 40-year career in fashion. And when he started helping Beer's gallery out, he was like, "Oh, you art people are just like the fashion people, except way worse." And I thought, fuck it, it's like, we're just a bunch of intolerable assholes. I don't know why. But I think it's about finding a safe space and finding an avenue that works for you. And because of social media, I think that's sort of knocked down the misconception that you have to go about it a certain way. You have to, like you said, you don't have to get a gallery. You don't have to do it this way. So it's just about finding the way that works for you.
And a whole bunch of other things like hard work and consistency and showing up every day. Those things
too. Yeah. You have to do the work to be able to. The work has to exist. And I think that's the first thing. And I don't want to say, oh, people are lazy, because I don't know that. But I mean, I know that I work really, really hard. I'm sure a lot of other people do, but I work really hard to get the shit done.
Yeah. And it can be a powerful tool. Oh my gosh.
He's like happening, hey?
I love that you're doing this at the same time as podcasting. It is so great.
It's like, because it takes you out of sometimes when I go live on my like Instagram there, it takes you, it puts you in that flow space where you're not really paying attention, where suddenly you've listened to the whole album and you're like, oh my God, I'm really? And it's like an abstract way of doing something. Which is good.
You're just throwing on a paint stick now.
Well,
I love those.
Yeah.
Okay, so and powerful things and journeys, and I love how you're writing now and painting and creating work, and you have an upcoming you're done all the work for your upcoming show, right? In Sydney?
You've done your homework, Brandy.
Oh, I know. I made notes. I never make notes for my podcast, so you should feel very special.
The show is called Good Things. It's my first show in Australia, with Earmark Gallery, and I've never worked with them. Well, I worked with them before I gave them 3 pieces for a group show, and they're lovely guys. And this kind of goes back to like what you're saying with this Color Me Happy stuff. I like keeping my my spectrum open for my ideas, and I like that spectrum to be ultimately quite positive, because I've certainly got myself into a rut before where you're painting about heavy ideas, and then I just would feel really heavy, and I don't want to feel heavy, so I don't do that. I paint about happy things. I mean, they've got other meanings, but ultimately they're happy things. So the show's called Good Things, and it opens April 27th or 28th, and I've got 14 pieces. Yeah,
It
I'm
says
pretty
the
excited. So,
21st online, just so you know.
oh, really? On their website or what?
I pulled it from somewhere. April 21st, and then it just goes May 23. Maybe you did it though on Instagram and it's not the right dates. Oh my
Okay,
gosh, you're
maybe.
just like me. It's
Oh, I'm just
sometime
like, whatever.
in the future months,
Every
and it will
everybody's
be great.
showing up. Everybody's showing up on the wrong day. Yeah, it's sometime in the future. So if you're in Australia, go. And I'm still trying to figure out whether or not. I mean, I think I'm going to go. I'm not sure. It's really up in the air right now, just because. Well, I have this house, and that's going to be
With your
finished
home,
basically.
yeah.
It's going to be finished like the same week. So I just don't know yet. I want to go. Me not going is not a reflection of not, believing in the show or anything. It's just
Australia is just really fucking far away too.
really far, and sometimes life gets in the way, and that's where we are right now. So I haven't booked, but I haven't not booked. It's like we're gonna just wait and see.
Um, I'm really excited. I hope you share your studio. Is it like you're building your dream studio?
It's like it's not huge, because
But
yeah, I
like
don't know. It's
windows, like big windows
it's
and
basically going to be a copy of this exact space. That's it. And but the beautiful thing is that I look over like an acreage, like our acreage, which is crazy to think that I have like this acreage, but and there's going to be trees, and then there's like a river in the distance. So it's
oh
really,
wow.
yeah, it's like super romantic, and it's just going to be so peaceful. And we're actually talking about doing a residency out there, but that I don't like talking about things like that, because in the event that it doesn't happen, I never want to be that person that, you know what I mean? I never want to be the person, like even with the book too, it's like I didn't talk about it to anybody. Nobody knew I was doing it until I had my first draft, because if I say something, I want to make sure it happens. It's like, we don't share work well, I don't share work that's in progress. You share work when it's done. So, but we have really been talking about doing a sort of two-prong residency, one in London and then one over there. And I think we will. We just have to figure out a lot of logistics, and the house has to be done first and all that kind of stuff.
That's
Yeah,
really exciting.
but I think
It's
it'd
a
be
whole
fun. And
new realm. Yeah.
yeah, and like you say, like I like to be generous with my knowledge and experience, and I think it'd be really fun to how easy would it be to have another studio down the hall that people could come work and make art, and we could liaise every couple of days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Be good for me too, because
There
I learn as well.
exactly. And I always feared the word like educator. Like I never wanted to be put in this box of that
Yeah.
and funny, oddly enough, so in our public school system I'm working with young people now. I founded an art academy, and it's
What?
super cute.
How do I not
It's
know any of this stuff? Am I just not paying attention? This is amazing.
because nothing comes out anymore the way it used to. So it's a
Yeah, it's
first
all
year, and it
algorithms
has
and stuff.
been like it has been so it has been beyond rewarding, and it does feed into your life and your work, and
What
it
what
is
age groups
so
is it?
powerful. They
What age
are
groups is it?
grade 6 to 8,
So
so
that's
they're
like
like
12 to
11
14?
to yeah, something like 11 to 13, and they are so cute and excited, and we like
Yeah.
make we make space together, we meditate, we do these like, or we don't call it meditation because we can't, but we call it making space, and we show up and we center ourselves, and then we do all these amazing things together, and it's just like there's something so rewarding
That's
about it,
awesome.
and I don't know why I discounted it for so long, but it is powerful and it can feed
Well,
into the creative process.
I know, like my mom's an educator, and she always said, "Oh, you could always teach, you could always teach," and teaching was never like the idea of going and having teaching be my career was never my interest. But that's not to say that I wouldn't do it. I think,
But
like
in your own way.
it's right, in my own way, and I think it's just really powerful to keep yourself open to possibility. I think as soon as we shut ourselves down, oh no, I'm never not going to paint portraiture, and I'm never going to do this, and I'm never going to get married, and then suddenly it's like, oh well, I used to say my work's really political, and if your work's not political, then why are you painting? And I don't believe that anymore. So I think anytime we speak in uh, fundamentalist
Absolute.
or extreme or yeah, absolutes, I think we run the risk of opening ourselves up for not embarrassment, but we run the possibility of contradicting ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes with
Which I
age too. I
mean,
mean, I think like when I was a younger painter, I wanted to feel passionate and I wanted to prove that I was had something to say, and I did, and that's fine. But I just don't believe that anymore. So you know,
mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm. Well, we evolve as human beings, and
absolutely.
we're
And we
always
become more
learning.
temperate with age, I believe.
Mm-hmm. But
So I
using your art and your creative skills for a greater purpose beyond yourself too is really interesting concept too. And when you talk about, a possibility of a residency or working with others, I think it's something so beautiful about that, and sharing parts of yourself and your knowledge and what you've learned so far in life, not only in the
yeah.
art world.
Well, and that's age too. We realize that we're not. I don't know. We want to share part of ourselves, and it's not just about your own, solipsistic desires or whatever it is. It's it could be more than that. So I think when I was starting out, you have to be really selfish and protect what you have and all this stuff. And then I don't know. I've just chilled out a lot in my old age. So that's a good thing. I like where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. I love to
Yeah.
see that. I think, okay, this is an example of, like, I thought I'd just be like painting forms my whole life. An
Yeah.
example of um how it can shift, like, and if you do leave it open for possibility. So with some other amazing women in my community, this year, this July, we are doing a mural project. It's 2,600 square feet, and it's called Choose
That's
Love and Join
massive.
Hands and Truth and Reconciliation. So it's not just like I'm just making art and it's beautiful and making my community pretty. It's like,
Yeah.
this means something to people. This
Yeah.
means something to a culture. This means something to someone being seen and acknowledged.
Yeah.
And honestly, and I'm going to start crying. I do every time I talk about it. I never thought I'd find myself here. I don't know how I got so lucky. And it's all because of that creativity. It's all because of
Yeah.
that gift. So why can't we share parts of ourselves? Why can't we tell other people how beautiful it is and that they can do it too? Because why not, when there's more people like us putting ourselves out there and taking risks and connecting to that magical being, that creative gift,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
will make this world a better place.
I think ultimately the word I like to use sometimes is porousness. It's about being porous and being open and letting yourself be surprised and not be shut off. And
Mm.
ultimately that's what we profess as artists. Sometimes we just don't do it all the time.
No.
Right? I mean sometimes
Well,
we're just go ahead, sorry.
no, I was waiting for you. I'm just listening.
Oh, I was gonna say sometimes we just become jerks, but I mean, ultimately, we're human and we're fallible, but yeah, but I think that's the idea of art, right? That it's the idea of sharing, and we said earlier, like communicating. So sometimes we just lose track of what it is that we're here to do. Art is ultimately a tool to inspire, and uh, I think ultimately it's a tool to inspire, and even if I think even in that regard, it's always inherently political. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I know now,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't, anyway.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I always said I'd avoid politics, and look at me now. So we can't speak in absolutes. You're right,
Never
and
say
we
never,
don't never never say. Are you gonna start singing
right?
for me?
Yeah, right.
Yes, it's beautiful. And you can always say that we can be jerks or whatever, but I know that you're not, because in my experience with your openness and
Well,
vulnerability,
that's
you've
very
been
sweet of
very
you to say.
kind.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah. Anytime. Anytime. And thank you for coming on.
Oh my
It's
God, it's
so
my
good.
absolute pleasure. I did a lot of work right now while we were talking. So,
Good. Good.
no, it's an
It was
absolute pleasure.
productive in more
It was
ways than
productive.
one.
Now my sun's going down, so my skin's not looking as nice anymore. But listen, it was really lovely chatting. And I love your like holistic outlook on art and life. And I think these things have strong ramifications when we implement them. So, and you got to send me all the stuff you're doing because to be honest, I feel like a bit of a jerk. I wasn't aware at all, but send me
Well,
an update of all this stuff,
um,
please.
actually, one of the chapters in my book is nobody cares. Because
I
everyone
swear
has all
to
their
God, I'm going to send you a screenshot of my chapter list. I swear to God, one of mine is
really,
nobody cares. I swear to
really.
God.
I
Yes.
referenced the I referenced the scene in Schitt's Creek. Do you watch Schitt's Creek? Uh,
I've seen it. Yeah.
okay. Oh,
Like
you
I've
you
seen it
haven't
all. I
seen all
mean,
of them?
no, I've
Okay.
seen it all.
Okay. Okay, you're being facetious. I get it. Okay.
No,
So
I'm not being facetious. I
okay,
have seen
okay,
it.
okay.
I've seen it
Okay.
all, but I've only seen it all
There's
like
some like
once, so I
diehard
can't
fans
like
out
quote it.
there.
No, I know.
I'm
My
like in
friend
the
Laura
middle.
is
I
diehard.
love it. And then there's the like people who like quote it. I just
No, I like
reference
really
things.
love it, and I send David gifs to people or gifs all the time. But
Yes.
yeah, but
Oh
I
my
can't like
gosh.
quote it
Yes.
freehand. He just the best. He has the facial expressions that ultimately, over text, embody
Oh
how
my
I'm
gosh.
feeling. That
Every
and
reel and story, I put his face in. Like he's
that
like,
and the other one I use is the cow with blonde hair. I use that one a lot, and I use the what's his name, John C. Riley. I use the huh. Oh, and I use Kermit. Kermit's always a good, like the dancing Kermit. Like dancing Kermit is
yes.
like my
Oh my
vibe in
gosh.
here.
Yes. Oh, my cheeks hurt.
When life gives
Yes.
you
Oh
lemons,
my
be a
gosh.
dancing Kermit. Yeah.
Uh, are we just like have a lot in common because we're Canadian, or what's going on?
There's definitely a prairie sensibility for sure. There's a Canadian sensibility, but even more so, there's a prairie sensibility, and that's a for sure thing. So, even like, did you call
Maybe.
it a bunny hug? Did you call it a bunny hug?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So everybody else is like, what the fuck's a bunny hug? Okay, yeah, we know. They don't need to know what a bunny hug is.
Yeah.
We know. It's a
Yeah.
huggy.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Anyway, on that note, it was
And
lovely, lovely speaking with you.
yeah, so great.
I'm
And
gonna go
again,
home with
yeah,
a
my
big smile
cheeks
on my
hurt.
face. Okay, Brandy.
Oh, it was so good to see you, and we'll keep in
But
touch. I'll send you a little. I'll send you a bunny hug, and a bunny
send
hug
me your
and a
like
book.
your promo pack, your promo PDF,
My
so I can see
promo.
everything that you've been working on because I feel out of the loop.
I don't have one of those. I'll send you a really
Then
long
make one.
voice note.
Sorry.
A
Okay,
start.
there's a little
Okay.
star for you. Okay, bye,
Have
Brandy.
an
Thank you
awesome
to your
day.
listeners.
Good luck with your home.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being here. I sure do appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed it. Isn't Andrew just lovely? We, it was, yeah, it was great. I love chatting with him. He's always so genuine and kind and honest. And it was just like jumping back and forth between two honest people who say exactly what's on their mind at that very moment. So I'm not going to apologize for it. I think it's okay to be honest and yourself. Um, so this month we actually have some exciting things going on. We have a mystery guest coming up on the podcast, and I'll give you some clues, and you're welcome to send in your answers. You can just message me on Instagram or post in the Color Me Happy community. She's a Canadian songstress, and I've drawn her face. And those are the clues that I'm going to give you. For now, super excited. We also have our upcoming mural course available. We actually have two different ones. So we have one for artists who want to expand their careers with like expanding into murals, so their artistic practice. Because I personally grew my practice and my net profits by 394% when I started including murals into my practice. It was a big expander. My one mural gets 10,000 visitors a year. So I think that's a pretty big deal. And that was my first one. It was 50 feet. And I don't know what the heck I was thinking. That's for sure. It was so much harder than I thought. So I have so much to teach you. I also have a course, a mini course for DIYers for interior murals, because I know materials, even for artists, can get confusing. And when it comes to murals, interior and exterior, there's just a whole... I've coached a lot of people through murals, and they're like, I just don't get it. Can you say that again? And then I say it 6 more times, and then they get it. That's how confusing materials can be. So check that out. It is available now. And thank you to our lovely supporters whom we could not do this without. Nouveau Laser and Aesthetic Center, Red Bicycle Communications, and Oasis Hot Yoga and Spin Studio. Have a great weekend, my friends. Thank you once again for being here. We appreciate your time and your support. You can subscribe to our weekly inspiration newsletter at brandyhofer.ca. You can join our Color Me Happy community on Instagram. You can also be featured as a member on our podcast and join our free community in Facebook, our Color Me Happy community. And what else? Brandy Hofer Studios is where I live, breathe, and tell every story in my stories. So if you really want the inside scoop, Brandy Hofer Studios is where I share everything. But I really appreciate you being here and being a part of whatever the heck we're doing. I don't know sometimes. It's crazy, but I like having you here, friend, and we'll chat with you soon. If you're looking for some time for yourself to relax, release, and unwind, Oasis has the perfect space for you. They offer yoga and spin classes of all levels. Whether you are a beginner or advanced student, Oasis thrives on accommodating all aspects of the practice. Let their serene environment and gracious staff help you in your journey of peace, healing, and strength. Sign up online at www.oasishotyogastudio.com or by downloading the Oasis Hot Yoga Studio app. Feel like yourself. You deserve it.